Assembly Chamber. Sound. 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 Assembly Chamber.
Please be seated. First item today is member statements, and I call Cathy Mason.
Many families across the north are being approached by schools for voluntary contributions. We know the financial pressures that many schools and constituencies right across the north face in ensuring they provide good learning environment for our children and in supporting their development. However, the reality for many families is that these contributions are voluntary in name only. Many feel obliged to make these payments. Voluntary contributions can add hidden costs that disproportionately affect already struggling families and create inequality. When back-to-school costs are already sky high, with parents facing astronomical costs when buying school uniforms and PE gear, these hidden fees can be the straw that finally breaks the camel's back for many households. At the moment, there is no statutory regulation as to how schools request voluntary contributions and how they spend them. Guidance from the Department of Education and the Education Authority is very limited, leaving schools to set the level of contributions to be requested of parents. For many, this is an additional financial burden that they cannot or they struggle to meet. Stronger guidance would provide transparency. It would give parents confidence that they will not be penalised for non-payment. It would create a level playing field across all schools, and it would support a fairer and more inclusive education system. So I would urge the Education Minister to listen to the concerns of hard-pressed families and offer a consistent and fair approach to voluntary contributions.
Philip Brett.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, for decades the benches opposite lectured the people of Northern Ireland against majority rule. They told us that it was unfair, undemocratic and oppressive. Yet today in Belfast City Council, with the help of the Alliance Party, they are imposing minority rule on the people of Belfast by introducing a scandalous policy that Irish language street signs can be enforced upon communities with just 15% support. Yes, that's right, Mr. Speaker, just 15% support. As revealed in the Belfast Telegraph yesterday, since 2022, 228 streets have been approved for Irish language street signs, yet only 12% of those applications had the majority support of residents who live in those streets. In nearly 9 out of 10 of those cases, the views of the minority trumped the view of the majority. That is not democracy, Mr. Speaker, that is imposition. And let's look at the facts. Signs were approved on Malone Valley Park and Eliza Street Close with just 15 support from residents. On Upper Stanfield Street, it was 16%, and in my constituency, Wolfhill Gardens, barely 17% of residents supported the change in signage. In each of those cases, the vast majority of local people did not back the change, yet the policy championed by Sinn Féin, the SDLP and the Alliance Party was pushed through. I have been contacted by residents across North Belfast, people from all backgrounds and traditions, telling me they do not want this territorial marking. They want to be left alone by Belfast City Council and the council to get on with their job of emptying bins, cleaning the streets and providing proper play park provision. And while this flawed policy rolls ahead, the cost continues to spiral. £170,000 has been spent on these signs to date, with 1,200 still to be erected. This is money that should be spent on overcoming the crumbling of our city centre, shops closing and businesses leaving Belfast. Parties talk about respect, Mr. Speaker, but this policy delivers the opposite, forcing minority rule on streets when the majority have been ignored. And when they don't like, Mr. Speaker, the answer they get from the resident survey results, don't worry, they'll just resurvey them until they get the results that they want. Our message in Belfast City Council is clear. Although we are a minority, Mr. Speaker, we will continue to speak up for the majority, and I trust the Alliance Party will once again U-turn on this disgraceful policy.
Peter McReynolds.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I rise today as Chair of the All-Party Group on Active Travel in response to today's Northern Ireland Audit Office report on active travel in Northern Ireland, and sadly, the findings were precisely what we expected. Under the Climate Change Act, the Department for Infrastructure is required to spend 10% of the transport budget on active travel. If this was the case, £85 million would have been spent annually, but they have now only spent a total of £50 million. Moreover, we are seeing the department take a creative approach to this, with street lighting repair and footpath repair being considered appropriate spend from the active travel budget. And Mr. Speaker, I see what they're doing with this approach, but unfortunately this will not increase the amount of people walking, cycling or wheeling to get around. Active travel has the ability to make a positive impact on how we move around our towns and cities. It has benefits for health, the environment and our economy, which are going unrealised through repeatedly being forgotten and ignored. The underinvestment and lack of targeted investment makes it obvious as to why targets are not being met. Although £50 million has been put towards active travel, what has this actually achieved? The 2015 bicycle strategy aspired to 20% of all journeys less than a mile being cycled by 2025, but unfortunately it's presently only 1%. COVID represented an opportunity for us to reimagine how we get around, given less cars and vehicles on our roads. In Paris, where I used to live, the mayor ordered immediate changes and now it's completely unrecognisable from what I used to know. In Belfast, we got some cones on Hill Street which were driven over, and pedestrianisation is now only being presented as an experimental scheme 5 years later. Mr. Speaker, I commend the active travel and cycling lobby who are calling for strategic investment and collaboration with key stakeholders to ensure the success of active travel problems. But it also takes the will of this Assembly and the will of departmental officials. Active travel in a place the size of Northern Ireland should be a no-brainer, but instead what we are seeing is failure to get the basics right early on, and we're cobbling things together in regards to what we know works later and at expense. I call on the Infrastructure Minister to listen to the Audit Office report today and work with the All-Party Group on active travel, the lobby and the Infrastructure Committee to deliver the necessary changes that are making getting around easier, safer and cleaner with active travel. Thank you.
Robbie Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I rise today to mark Non-Speaking Awareness Day. And I want to be absolutely clear. We must not just allow this to become another date in the calendar, that we raise awareness and move on. I want to issue a challenge to all the members today, a challenge to every one of us, and actually those beyond this chamber, to stop for a moment and recognise perhaps the most undervalued human right of all, and that is the right to communicate. Because we must remember that just because someone can't speak, it doesn't mean that they don't understand. We wake up every morning, we speak without thinking, which is patently obvious sometimes, perhaps even from myself. We debate, we interrupt, we shout across the chamber, we treat speech like air. Invisible, automatic and always available. But for thousands across Northern Ireland, including children with autism, stroke survivors and people with degenerative conditions, speech is not guaranteed, and for some it's impossible. It's a work, it's a frustration. It is silence misunderstood sometimes as disinterest. It is intelligence trapped behind a barrier that others mistake for absence. So let me say it plainly. We do not value communication until it is taken from us. So this day serves as a reminder to support and advocate for non-verbal individuals, ensuring that their voices are heard and that their rights are respected. So today is not just about empathy, it's about urgency. Urgency for better access to assistive technology. Urgency for training so that our public services can truly listen even when no words are spoken. Urgency to treat non-speaking individuals not as silent, but as unheard. And on Non-Speaking Day, I ask not for sympathy, but for accountability and some awareness raising. And if we pride ourselves in this Assembly on giving voice to the voiceless, then let us begin by ensuring that silence is not mistaken for invisibility. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Durgan.
Speaker, last week in this chamber, the First Minister said the North West is thriving. The response from my constituents in the interim has been one of disbelief. We do welcome any positivity for Derry. Last week we welcomed 4 ministers to mark the start of work at the DNA Museum. But let's be honest, we're not thriving. We're barely surviving, and we're surviving despite this executive, not because of it. If anything has happened, it has at least shown the public how detached the executive is from reality. This week, Echo, one of our flagship arts organisations, will close its doors. Arts investment in the West is woeful. The legacy of the City of Culture has never been built upon. But sure, the North West is thriving. The Executive has ignored calls to save our crisis intervention service, despite the fact that we have among the highest stats for suicide on these islands. But sure, the North West is thriving. When Derry jobs were cut at BT, there was no intervention to save them. Staff were let go, or the lucky ones offered roles in Belfast. In recent weeks, thousands of new jobs have been announced in Belfast. For Derry, nothing, nowhere near anything in that stratosphere. That's not regional balance, that's the exact opposite. But sure, the North West is thriving. 1 in 5 children across the north live in poverty. That's a disgrace in itself. But in Derry, that rises to 1 in 4. The addiction centre promised under NDNA has not been delivered. Funding has been stripped from the Northland Centre, and the Minister of Health has yet to meet that organisation. Football clubs across the North West have been strung along for years with the promise of funding under the Northern Ireland Football Fund. They've been handed a grand sum of £0. But sure, the North West is thriving. Homelessness in Derry has doubled in the past decade. We're the housing crisis hotspot, with £6.5 million being spent on temporary accommodation last year, but we're thriving. My constituency has the highest unemployment rate, the highest claimant count, highest household overcrowding. Derry City and Strabane ranked 357th out of 359 UK council regions for quality life. How then is it that we are thriving? The First Minister seems to think if you say something often enough, it will become reality. That's not the fact. We are far from thriving, but we will continue to work, we'll continue to fight, and we will continue to overcome.
Ciara Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise this morning to speak in relation to bowel cancer, and it's something that's quite personal to me, having lost my father in 2002 to bowel cancer after 2 weeks of diagnosis. Bowel cancer is treatable and curable, especially if diagnosed early. Nearly everyone survives bowel cancer if diagnosed at the earliest stage. However, this drops significantly as the disease develops. Early diagnosis saves lives. Whilst bowel cancer is most common in people over 50, it is important to emphasise that bowel cancer can affect anyone, whatever your age, gender, ethnicity or where you live. In Ireland, around 2,500 people each year develop bowel cancer, also known as colorectal or colorectal cancer. In the north, the public agency indicated that 1 in 20 people here will develop cancer, bowel cancer. Whilst bowel cancer is the 4th most frequently diagnosed cancer here, it is the 2nd biggest cause of cancer-related deaths. Some symptoms of bowel cancer include blood in your faeces, rectal bleeding, changing in pooing habits, losing weight for no obvious reason, feeling more tired than usual for some time, feeling pain in your stomach or bottom, or a feeling of not having emptied your bowels after going to the toilet. If you have even one of these symptoms, or if you're worried about any changes, you should ask your GP about accessing an at-home kit, something that I have received recently. Our Cancer Strategy 2022 to 2032 has committed to reducing the sensitivity levels used in facial immunochemical testing, FIT testing here, which check for hidden blood in stool samples. It is also committed to lowering the age eligibility for our bowel cancer screening programme to 50 years. It is currently offered to those aged 60 to 74. I recently asked the Minister for Health in respect of these commitments, and he has outlined that whilst this is ongoing, it will be reviewed in the context of financial and capacity challenges within supporting services. I would like to remind the Minister today that for the fourth most common cancer to be the second biggest cancer killer here, this is evidence enough of the need to urgently deliver the expansion of this life-saving programme. Thank you.
Alan Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the early autumn of 2024, the then Infrastructure Minister, John O'Dowd, announced a £2.6 million active travel scheme on the A2 Cluny Road, Ballykelly, which commenced in late 2024. The 1.6 metre active travel scheme was touted to improve facilities for pedestrians and cyclists, as well as resurfacing of the carriageway. Minister O'Dowd said it would increase opportunities for walking, wheeling and cycling. He also asked road users for their patience while this scheme is carried out. To facilitate the work, temporary traffic managements would be in place for a period of 33 weeks. The scheme removes what was once a hard shoulder, which on many occasions was used for vehicles to pull over to allow ambulances and emergency vehicles to pass on this exceptionally busy key route in the northwest. The scheme creates a cycle path on a road that is an estimated 18,000 vehicles per day. I have to say, Mr. Speaker, there is not a day that passes that I or any other public rep do not receive complaints from road users regarding the traffic delays on the Ballykelly to Greysteel Road. In my 20 years of public life, I cannot recall so much frustration and anger at a road scheme that has been touted by so many members of the public as a total waste of public money. The huge tailbacks are hurting the people of Ballykelly. It is hurting Greysteel. It is hurting the people of Londonderry and everywhere in between. With recent news indicating that the scheme has been extended into early 2026, it is incumbent upon the Department to act now and put measures in place to mitigate against further daily delays for fed-up drivers. I asked the Sinn Féin Minister why the completion of the Cluny Road Active Travel Scheme could not be carried out in the evenings. Unlike other traffic schemes that were carried out in the evenings that were subsequently met with objections due to late-night noise, this scheme does not impact on any populated residential areas and therefore would not be faced with similar public anger, whereas the public anger in this region is palpable. Public representatives are in post to act in the best interests of the public. The Minister's Department have said recently that they're going to assess the management of the traffic. The Sinn Féin Minister needs to do more. She needs to listen to the people of that region, and she now urgently needs to act. We need our potholes fixed rather than more active travel schemes.
Danny Donnelly.
Mr. Speaker, this really was a summer for sport on the Antrim coast. In my East Antrim constituency, Glenarm held the 33rd All-Ireland Coastal Rowing Championships. The event returned to the north for the first time in 12 years and delivered one of the most successful weekends in memory. It was entirely volunteer-led, delivered by the Antrim Coast Rowing Association and the Irish Coastal Rowing Federation, who put over a year of work into making it happen. 550 crews from 36 clubs travelled from across the island, bringing with them their families, supporters and spectators. 10,000 people attended across the weekend, and the impact was felt throughout the village and along the coast. The scale of this event also drew significant media attention, with 2 featured pieces on BBC News, coverage across local and regional press, and radio pieces on both Radio Foyle and on Radio Ulster. The Department for Communities featured the occasion in 2 promotional videos and social media, which was full of positive reflections from clubs that had travelled, praising the organisation, the setting and the welcome they received, and the promise that they would return. Every local business felt it. Accommodation was booked out all along the coast, and there was a real buzz from the first race until the final medal. The impact goes way beyond money and promotion and goes right to the heart of communities, not just in my constituency but across the island. Local clubs were central to that success. Castle Rowing Club made history this year as the largest club in the competition, entering a record number of crews and taking home 13 medals. Whitehead crews added 7 more medals, with Carnlough securing 3 and the Glens and Glenarm 2 each. Clubs have already told me that this event was a huge increase in interest for next season, and this has been an amazingly positive result for our community. This year's efforts were supported by Mid and East Antrim Council grant, which made a real difference but did not cover all the costs. Ongoing support is essential if we want to see these volunteer-led events with real community impact return. Locally, one of the biggest clubs on the island, Castle, have struggled to get facilities for years, and newer clubs like the Glens need support to get equipment. Clubs like Carnlough, who have been around since the 1800s, need that support to retain the legacy and the heritage that they have. The success of this year should not be the exception, nor should it take another 12 years for the championship to come back. With the chance that it may come back in 2027, we need to use this time to invest in this sport and our clubs, especially where they can offer our communities so much and bring so much positive recognition with events like this to our coastline. So I want to place on record my thanks to everyone who made it happen, and to say that our local community did us proud. And I have no doubt that the legacy of this championship will last for many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I want to begin my remarks by reading into the record an open letter that Mr. Paul Toombs sent to the Justice Minister last week. Dear Minister Long, I am writing to express my profound disgust and sense of betrayal regarding your comments on the Nolan show. I was horrified to hear you equate the actions of terrorists with the experience of innocent victims. You said, when you talk about people who have done really bad things, often really bad things have also been done to those people, and that's part of the point where they were willing to do those things. This view is not only factually wrong, but deeply insulting to my family and countless others who have suffered at the hands of those who chose to inflict pain and misery. My family never had a choice. We never lifted a gun. We never planted a bomb. My father, Ivan Toombs, was murdered in service of his community. He sacrificed his life to keep the peace. True reconciliation can only ever be built on truth and justice. Your words and your actions have only deepened mistrust. Doug Beattie called Mrs. Long's words an appalling contribution which blurred the line between victim and perpetrator. My North Antrim colleague Mr. Frew described her position as diabolical. I agree with both statements. My question today is, do the DUP and the Ulster Unionists still have confidence in the Justice Minister? I remind the House Mrs. Long is unique in the Executive. Mrs. Long is Minister of Justice because this Assembly voted to make her Minister of Justice. And the record shows that only Jim Allister opposed her appointment. So, what now? Are the DUP and the Ulster Unionists happy to sustain a Justice Minister who can't grasp the difference between a victim and a victim maker? Act or own it. In Champion Stormont, you own a First Minister who said there was no alternative to IRA murder. You own an Irish Language Commissioner imposed upon unionists. You own a Justice Minister who equates terrorists with their victims. Own it or do something about it. Yesterday I lodged a motion of no confidence in the Justice Minister in the Business Office. If colleagues agree with me that she should not hold office, then go and sign my motion, or indeed table your own and I will sign it. But if you do nothing, then you will own
Members' time is up.
yet another failed feature
call
of this
Plenary.
dormant executive.
I will be speaking in Irish during my contribution. Last week marked Organ Donation Week, a week that allows us to re-energise our commitment to a life-saving decision. The cause of organ donation is one that I hold dear, as, having met young Dahi and his family in the year 2020, they left a lasting impact on me. We promised that we would do everything that we could to make the new law a reality. I'm proud to say that we, along with others, delivered on that promise. Dahi's law has been introduced, and it is a monumental step in the right direction. Let us be clear. Dahi's law is saving lives. However, it does not end there. There are 163 people on our waiting list as of last year. With the Department of Health's current pause on public awareness campaigns, it is vital that we, as public representatives, use our voices and our platforms to promote life-saving causes. There were 2 action points in this Organ Donation Week. We need people to consider joining the organ donation register, and we need people to share their wishes with their loved ones. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The A5 has been the subject of much debate in this House in recent weeks and months, and again it bears mention again today. The ongoing delay as we await the outcome of the appeal by the Minister and her department against the court judgment is currently causing uncertainty for farm businesses and much concern for the families who have lost loved ones on the existing roadway. And we can never mention the A5, but first and foremost our thoughts are with the families who today have a silent voice, an empty chair in their home, and every day as we travel that road we are reminded of the devastation caused to many families, and our sympathies are with them today. However, there is a second set of victims that are so often overlooked, and that is the farming community. Landowners and farm families whose livelihoods have been placed in limbo for well over a decade, with third and fourth generation farming families facing great uncertainty for their future business. Their lands were vested, groundwork undertaken which saw land left in such a state that it is unable to be farmed, and disruption above measure caused to many of these businesses. Driving through the constituency of West Tyrone, it is devastating to see the hundreds of acres of farmland that has been left in such a deplorable condition. No one can deny that the A5 project is a key economic driver for the West, bringing with it regional balance, better connectivity and employment. But our farmers, our businesses, our victims, our local people need clarity on the future of this project, with millions of pounds having already been spent, and all that we see for it is a devastation to hundreds of acres of farmland. This isn't good enough. It's totally unacceptable. It has to be recognised that the handling of this scheme has been deeply flawed by the Minister and her department, and seeking to get information from the department to provide clarity for the farming community is trying to take blood from a stone. And that is totally unacceptable. The Minister must come to the House, must step up to the plate and must provide clarity on this issue. Of course, we also have the Agriculture Minister, and very little engagement with the farm businesses, so keen to set net zero targets, supported by the Sinn Féin and the SDLP parties in this business that saw this project brought to a halt. When will they come back to this House with proposals to reduce those targets to allow these projects to proceed? It is, if this were to happen, Mr. Speaker, in any other business or in any other political jurisdiction, heads would roll.
Call Kelly Armstrong. Ms Armstrong, if you could confine remarks to 2 minutes, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Due to the state of my voice today, I'll not take too long. Mr. Speaker, tomorrow is the 1st of October, and it's amazing how quickly years pass by, but starting from tomorrow is Baby Loss Awareness Month. I rise today to talk about this because, as others have heard in the House, I think it's important that we recognise the number of children who are born asleep or born too early, and I think it's very important to break the silence about baby loss. I've been very open about my own history of my 14 children. 13 sadly have not made it to be with us, but I have one very special daughter, and I hold her close to my heart. But for all those families, all those mums and dads who don't get to hold their children to their hearts, but hold them in their hearts because they're not with them, I think it's important that this month we take the time to recognise the hurt and the pain, and that the 1 in 4 pregnancies that end without a baby. It's very sad that October is the month that it happens in. It's when the dark nights start to roll in. It's when we start to think about wrapping up warm. And it's the time when we want to be with family. But for some of us who've been through baby loss, not being able to talk about that loss, having that silent grief, is something that causes a lot of pain and anguish. So this month, can I ask you all, look to your loved ones, ask them how they are, how long has it been, what would have been their name, and just tell them that you're sorry for their loss. We're not alone. There are many of us out there, and we share this grief together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs Armstrong. We now move to the next item of business, which is a motion from the Committee for Finance to extend the committee stage of a bill. Clerk, please read the motion.
That in accordance with Standing Order 33.4, the period referred to in Standing Order 33.2 be extended to the 27th of March 2026 in relation to the committee stage of the Northern Ireland Fiscal Council Bill.
I call the Chairperson of the Committee for Finance to move the motion.
So moved.
Thank you. The Business Committee has agreed there will be no time limit in this debate. I call the Chairperson to open the debate on the motion.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I want to start by first of all saying the committee welcomes as we did whenever it was introduced, and at second stage welcomes the fact this bill has been published. I want to highlight that in bringing this motion, the committee sees the new date of the 27th of March 2026 as a limit rather than a target, and I'll underline that point for both of these bills. I'm very keen that we do our scrutiny rigorously and have the time to do it, but that we do it expeditiously. The committee aims to complete its report on the bill without any undue delay prior to that date. I'm not going to set out the provisions of this bill beyond noting that the Northern Ireland Fiscal Council itself was established on a non-statutory basis in March 2021 as part of the New Decade New Approach Agreement. The Council's rationale is to bring greater transparency and independent scrutiny to the current and future state of our public finances. It was established based on the 9 broad principles recommended by the Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development for independent fiscal organisations. In accordance with these principles and in line with international best practice, the NI Fiscal Council seeks to establish the Council on a statutory basis and provides a legislative framework to underpin its work. The bill was introduced into the Assembly on the 23rd of June 2025. It subsequently completed second stage on Tuesday the 1st of July, with committee stage beginning the day after on Wednesday the 2nd of July, immediately prior to summer recess. As members are aware, Standing Order 33.2 provides, quote, a statutory committee to which a bill stands referred under this order may, within the period of 30 working days from date of referral, consider and take evidence on the provisions of the bill and report its opinions thereon to the Assembly. Without an extension to the committee stage for the Fiscal Council Bill, the last day of committee stage would have been Tuesday the 7th of October, or will be if we don't pass this motion. That's obviously next Tuesday, when the committee would be required to lay its report on the bill. To meet this deadline, the committee would be likely to have to forego an appropriate level of scrutiny of the bill. This might well result in the committee receiving criticism for not sufficiently scrutinising the bill. Upon its establishment in 2021, the Chair and members of the Northern Ireland Fiscal Council developed a communications and engagement plan to clearly articulate the remit of the Fiscal Council and engage with relevant stakeholders, including a range of consultations with the Minister of Finance, the Finance Committee, other members of the Assembly, government officials and economic commentators. As the policy consultation, and I should say they had their I don't know if it's their third or fourth annual conference just the week before last, and I would encourage any members who want to attend to get in touch. There won't be obviously another one for some time, but they really are doing a very good work in terms of communicating their work and their role. As the policy consultation carried out by the Fiscal Council was extensive, no further consultation was carried out. Therefore, it's imperative that key stakeholders be approached to give evidence on the bill. These stakeholders are time-constrained individuals or organisations. Therefore, the committee must offer a level of flexibility to give evidence and to appear in front of the committee. This represents a certain level of risk, as the committee must have scope to consider responses to the call for evidence, and potentially there may be a need to call further witnesses. Additionally, to allow the committee to deal with any issues raised, an extension to the committee stage is required that also recognises the Halloween and Christmas recesses. It is also important to reflect the committee's wider work programme, which at this point includes scrutiny of the first multi-year budget in a decade, we hope, as well as supporting other committees in their scrutiny of the 5-year business plans, the Administrative and Financial Provisions Bill, which we're talking about next, an inquiry into civil service reform, and several other bits of pressing scrutiny. The calculation of a bill scrutiny timetable generally includes an 8-week call for evidence, with both written submissions and survey responses, hopefully having been received, a number of in-person evidence sessions during committee meetings, and obviously sufficient time needs to be built into the timetable, particularly given issues that may arise in oral evidence that require further investigation. Other business of the committee to be progressed in a timely manner, as well as thorough consideration of the bill. Members will be aware that the committee will also be scrutinising simultaneously the Administrative and Financial Provisions Bill. So, in requesting that the Assembly supports this extension, the committee asks that members give us the possibility, that members give us the flexibility we need to discharge our statutory scrutiny role with respect to this bill. At its meeting on the 17th of September, the committee agreed this motion to extend committee stage along with a revised committee timetable. So, Mr. Speaker, this is an extension that we believe is necessary in order to give this bill the time and scrutiny it deserves. But I would underline in my role as committee chair that I am strongly of the view that this is a limit rather than a target. I do not expect or want to be coming anywhere near this chamber again to do anything other than debate amendments rather than ask for a further extension. So we commend this motion to the House and seek members' approval. Thank you.
The question is that the motion stand in order. Paper be agreed. All those in favour say aye. Contrary, if any, no. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. The next item of business is another motion from the Committee for Finance to extend the committee stage of a bill. Clerk, please read the motion.
That in accordance with Standing Order 33.4, the period referred to in Standing Order 33.2 be extended to the 27th of March 2026 in relation to committee stage of the Administrative and Financial Provisions Bill.
I call the chairperson of the committee to move the motion.
So moved.
Thank you. The Business Committee has agreed there is no time limit on this debate. I call the chairperson to open the debate on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to start by saying again, as I did the last time, that the committee welcomes this bill. This is Administrative and Financial Provisions bills are something that come along once in a while, but we haven't had one here for more than a decade, and this is for that reason, this is a more substantial one at the most. The committee sees this 27th of March, which is the new proposed date to end committee stage, as a limit rather than a target, as we did with the previous bill, the Fiscal Council bill. We aim to complete our report on the bill without any undue delay prior to that date. I'm not going to go through the provisions of the bill, beyond noting that, as I just said, Financial Provisions Bill, which deal with administrative matters or give departments powers to either spend money in certain ways or levy fees in certain ways come along at semi-regular intervals to deal with routine financial matters which require amendment to governing legislation. Many of you who will have heard during debates on estimates documents complaints about what the use of the black box, that is a device to use the budget acts to authorise spending where no freestanding legislative provision exists. These bills are designed to tidy up those anomalies and to minimise the use of what is called the sole authority of the Budget Act. In developing the bill, the Department of Finance sought inputs from other departments. A number of departments indicated miscellaneous administrative matters that they wish to be included in the bill. Therefore, the bill gives effect, and this is where it is different from the previous bill, the Fiscal Council bill. This bill gives effect to policy proposals for DAERA, DFC, DFE, DFI, TEO and DE, as well as policy proposals from the Department of Finance itself. The bill was introduced to the Assembly on Monday 23rd of June 2025. It subsequently completed second stage on Tuesday 1st of July. Monday 23rd of June. It subsequently completed its second stage, as with the Fiscal Council bill, on the 1st of July and moved into committee stage on the 2nd of July, just before recess. The standing orders in relation to Standing Order 33.2 states, I won't read it into the record again, Mr Speaker, because I did it for the last bill and I'm sure members can refer back to what standing orders say about committee extensions. But as I said, without extending this one to the committee stage would end next Tuesday on the 7th of October. We wouldn't have enough time to scrutinise it in detail. We would have to forego oral evidence sessions, and I don't think, and the committee does not think that we would have sufficient time to scrutinise the full all of the measures in this bill, which are substantial. Many are technical, but they still require further detail. Some of them aren't that technical. So, not seeking an extension to the committee stage would quite possibly result in criticism of the committee and indeed the broader Assembly for not sufficiently scrutinising this bill. It has already become apparent to the committee that the clause dealing with the transfer of procurement and management of external auditors for the Audit Office from the Department of Finance to the Audit Committee is a subject of live dispute between the Audit Committee of the Assembly and the Department of Finance. That's just one issue where there needs to be further evidence taken and more, and we need to understand exactly the appropriateness of that power. The Audit Committee does not believe it has the capacity or indeed the vires to undertake this role. Obviously, the purpose of this bill would be to give it the vires, while the Department believes it does or should have the capacity. The Audit Committee has sought legal advice on this matter, and the Committee for Finance will be doing the same. So part of the purpose of our committee stage, an extended committee stage, will allow us to consider that advice and work towards a resolution. Additionally, it will allow the committee to deal with any other issues raised by other committees, and we have written to all of the other relevant statutory committees asking them for their views on the issues raised in this Administrative and Financial Provisions Bill. So that an extension also would, as with the previous bill, recognise both the Halloween and Christmas recesses and the committee's broader work programme, which includes, as has been said, Fiscal Council bill, budget scrutiny, including a multi-year budget, we hope, and work on civil service reform, including all the ongoing other work the statutory committees have to deal with. We have a very busy schedule. So I've listed the calculation of bill scrutiny, which is included, that committees include in their schedule in the previous motions, so I won't list it all again, but I would say that in requesting this extension, that the Assembly supports this extension. The committee asks that members give us the flexibility we need to discharge our statutory scrutiny role with respect to this bill. And at our meeting on the 17th of September, the committee agreed this motion to extend committee stage. So, Mr Speaker, we believe this is necessary, but to reiterate and underline, this is a deadline, a limit rather than a target, and I personally as Chair am very much committed to that. So the committee overall commends this motion and asks the House approve it. I'm just going to make a couple of very brief comments in a party capacity. The Administrative and Financial Provisions Bill is extremely important. We passed it at second reading because it's important that we do look at some of the powers being taken here. There are a whole range of things that the public will expect us to have scrutinised, and I just say gently to members of other committees, do not expect the Finance Committee should simply either wave this through or do your job for you in terms of scrutiny. Just pick a few aspects out of this bill. It gives the Minister, who happens to be in the chamber for another bit of business, I'm not going to ask her to respond to it, but it gives her department the power to grade tourist facilities, to levy certain charges for tourism providers, for training. It gives TEO very sweeping powers to spend money on violence against women and girls, a huge and important subject, but we need to understand what those powers are. It contains powers around housing association fraud. It also gives the Department of Infrastructure the power to levy for smart passes. Those are something that are somewhat interesting to members, to people who are over the age of 60. I just say gently to members, these are really big powers. It's really important that we scrutinise them. We know that this chamber and this assembly and this institution has had a lot of people, shall we say, diplomatically criticise our capacity and our ability to scrutinise. So we need to get this one right. So I just say gently to members of all committees and all parties, this needs to be scrutinised properly, and it isn't just the Finance Committee's job to do it. Beg the indulgence of the Speaker to make that point. Otherwise, I ask the Assembly to pass this motion. Thank you.
The question is the motion stand in order. Paper be agreed. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Counter if any no. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. If members would take their ease before we move to the next item of business.
Okay, members, the next item of business is a motion on addressing skills gaps between young people and businesses. Clerk, would you please read the motion?
That this Assembly notes the importance of promoting economic opportunity to deliver social justice and a truly reconciled society, recognises the significant job creation delivered by investment in Northern Ireland over the last few years, acknowledges that a lot of that investment was based on the linkage in skills development between higher education and businesses in receipt of investment, regrets that opportunities are being missed because too many skills gaps remain and there are too many occasions when that skills linkage does not exist, expresses support for prioritising support into skills development and employment for the 19,000 young people in Northern Ireland not in education, employment or training, and calls on the Minister for the Economy to establish a talent development strategy similar to SkillNet Ireland and other similar agencies in Europe to ensure greater alignment between skills development in further and higher education and what businesses actually require.
Thank you. I call David Honeyford to move the motion. Thank you, David. So the Business Committee has agreed to allow up to 1 hour and 30 minutes for this debate. The proposer of the motion will have 10 minutes to propose and 10 minutes to wind. As an amendment has been selected and is published on the marshalled list, the Business Committee has agreed that 15 minutes will be added to the total time for the debate. David, please open the debate on the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Principal Deputy Speaker. The latest figures released earlier this week show almost 25,000 young people. It's 10% of our young people between the ages of 16 and 24 are not in training, education nor employment, without hope, and their futures put on hold. So rather than culture wars or constitutional battles that we've had week in, week out in this place, Alliance is bringing forward this motion that comes straight from our core values of social justice, of reconciliation, of building a shared society, working to share this island, and simply making life better for everyone. To do that, we cannot leave 25,000 young people behind. This is an issue that we must, as an Assembly, tackle. It is fundamentally wrong to complain that our young people are lazy, and we've heard that narrative this morning. But if we are not going to give them the help and the hand up that they need in line and skills with the requirements of what business and industry needs for opportunities, then we cannot move forward. We can see from across the border, very close to us, that far more people will move into employment if we have and build the right connections to enable that. And I want to give some context of our economy here. Our economy is actually crying out for an additional 5,000 skilled workers each year just to stand still. Yet we are failing our own young people and our business community. And so Alliance is bringing forward this motion as the party of opportunities, and we want to see this region flourish. People to have opportunities, to have skills and qualifications is a barrier to that, and it must be addressed. We believe that prosperity must be shared, that everybody must be given opportunities to better themselves, to deliver job opportunities, skills and social justice for all. As industry moves quickly with the announcement of AI or an advancement of AI and advanced manufacturing, it's become increasingly more difficult for a young generation to secure training and employment opportunities because opportunities are either limited or in high demand. So no young person should be left without hope or their future blocked with barriers in the way, and no business should be held back by not having the skill system that is, or having a skill system that is broken. Skills are the foundation for any economy, and an ever-growing skill base is vital if we are to deliver an economic and social transformation that Northern Ireland needs. We have got to create opportunities and give hope, and fundamentally ensure that we stop leaving young people behind. We must make sure that delivery opens up pathways for young people from disadvantaged backgrounds, that empowers them and offers them a better future. We've got to remove barriers for people who have not passed GCSE Maths and English at the age of 16 to give them a future and a hope for better. And this must also include those with additional needs. And I want to commend here at the start Alma White and the work that she has done with Caleb's Cause for a generation of young people there that also need our help and support. And this is why Alliance is calling for the extension of what already exists in the South and what our local business organisations have been calling for. Let's learn from what works and implement it here. And Alliance wants to see the model of SkillNet Ireland implemented here in Northern Ireland, working together north-south as needed. This is a flexible model that links business and industry with colleges, universities and the schools. Based around a sector or based around a geographical area, having SkillNet Ireland would enable cross-border, all-island economic cooperation, and I've said we should work on a north-south to help remove some of the issues of mobility and skills issues that we hear repeatedly in an economy committee that happens when somebody lives on one side of the border and the business is on the other, whichever way around that works. But a focus is on making sure that we put the appropriate training courses in place to match what industry needs, thus creating opportunities and empowering people. When it comes to working together, I do want to note that the Department of Economy and the Department of Education together in this area does concern me, and that concern comes from the response back to a recent PAC investigation into skills, which found this area to be completely broken down, with fragmented and wasted substantial amounts of money through duplication. And one of the recommendations was around ensuring that funding for further and higher education bodies is directed towards the provision of courses that addresses the skills need and adapts quickly to provide the growth areas in our economy. Further, working with the Department of Education, it must do more to raise awareness and incentivise the uptake of these courses to reduce the skills gap. What this motion is calling for would deliver that specific action and join the work between the two departments so we aren't wasting money and resources duplicating different courses at different times for the same people. Local businesses, organisations are calling for this. So NI Chamber have been leading the shout for this and campaigning, and we're calling for what they're asking right now. I want to give an example of how this would work. I recently met a large IT company in Belfast, and they are employing graduates, and once they're employed they have to put them on an intense internal training course for 12 weeks. And why is that? Because their degree that we're doing doesn't cover what the business needs. Other examples I've met when businesses tell me all the time about wanting to create apprenticeships, but they don't have the link for a training course within a technical college to enable the qualification of what they need. And what's currently being done there needs to be adapted to meet what business needs. What we've always done, or doing what we've always done, won't cut it. The skills gap must be addressed urgently. Businesses are calling for this, and our young people deserve this. So Alliance is calling for the Minister for the Economy to establish that talent development agency, modelled on SkillNet Ireland, that comes from other proven European approaches. By doing so, at the heart of this motion, what we're doing is creating better opportunities for young people that delivers prosperity and gives hope, but ultimately that delivers both for our workforce and for local employers and raises standards of our living the standards of living for our population. This is about putting more money in people's pockets, about giving them opportunities and allowing them to work in jobs that they can thrive and grow into. A shared future, a reconciled and practical example of a shared island, delivering social justice, integration that delivers better. I just want to quickly point to the SDLP amendment, and I can't support the SDLP amendment as it changes the call of the motion by removing Extending SkillNet Ireland to Northern Ireland. I've addressed how it would work and how it should work on an all-island basis. The same system should work, but simply to say for the Minister to pass responsibility onto a new body that doesn't exist. Importantly, there's no plans in the South to even make it exist. That puts ideology in front of the betterment of people, and Alliance want this betterment right now. Sharing this island is fundamental to me, fundamental to Alliance, but that means providing leadership and government here and now to deliver what our young people need right now and what our business community needs right now. That cannot be ignored and it can't be bypassed. Thank you, Principal Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, David. I call on Sinead McLaughlin to move the amendment.
Moved.
Thank you, Sinead. You'll have 10 minutes to propose and 5 minutes to wind, and all other speakers will have 5 minutes. Sinead, please open the debate on the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker. Firstly, can I thank the proposer of this motion and say that I really welcome the opportunity to speak on this important issue, which goes to the heart of Northern Ireland's economic future. How do we equip our young people with the skills that they need to succeed in a very changing economy? We should begin by recognising that in recent years investment has delivered important job creation in Northern Ireland. That is welcome, but if we are also honest, it is not enough. Too many opportunities are still being missed, too many people are being left behind, and too often investment is not regionally balanced. If we are serious about delivering not only prosperity but also social justice and reconciliation, then every community in Northern Ireland must share in the benefits of growth. Opportunity cannot be confined to the few, and investment cannot be concentrated in one corner of a region. Invest NI has an important role to play in securing investment for the North, but it also must be accountable for delivering it to all of our regions. That is why the resignation of Kieran Kennedy from its board should concern all of us. He has made clear that he felt that the North West was being discriminated against and that the organisation was not committed to achieving regional balance. Our higher education institutions are central to that mission. Across this island, in Derry, in Belfast, in Coleraine, in Jordanstown, in Donegal, in Galway, our university colleges are not just centres of learning, they are economic engines, hubs of research and innovation, and drivers for social progress. But they're under enormous strain. They are being asked to do more with less. The Department for the Economy too often skirts its responsibilities, and the crisis of funding is actually real. This cannot be and must not be solved by raising tuition fees and shifting the burden to our students. The SDLP led the change against those proposals, and we continue to oppose them. Instead, the Minister must bring forward a sustainable funding model that supports our universities, protects access and allows our young people to thrive. The ongoing review into higher education is critical and must be used to set out a bold vision, not to manage decline. And yet, here, as we debate this, 19,000 of our young people in Northern Ireland are currently not in education, employment or training. That is 19,000 lives, 19,000 futures, and that's not just a statistic, it is an actual moral and social failure of this place. We need urgent action to expand apprenticeships, to strengthen pathways into further education, and to break down the barriers that stop so many of our young people from reaching their potential. And alongside that, we urgently need to see progress on the careers portal, which was it's been designed to link education, skills and employment. It must be delivered as soon as possible so that our young people can actually see clear pathways from study to work, and so that employers can have the confidence that their skill needs will be met. And that is why the expansion too of Magee University to 10,000 students remains a priority for us. It's not simply about numbers, it's about transforming the economy and society of the North West. And it's about saying that young people, their future does not have to be elsewhere. It can be built here and it can be built at home. I see every day in my constituency and right throughout Northern Ireland where businesses and higher education actually work together. In my own city, Alchemy is creating meaningful careers that power economic and social recovery. All States Future Innovators competition has given 3,500 young people in Derry and Strabane the chance to build vital digital skills, and that is exactly the type of collaboration we need. But we must also be clear, individual businesses cannot do this alone. That is where government must step up. And the SDLP agrees with the proposer of the motion that the best way forward is to establish a talent development agency. And Mr Honeyford did highlight the work of SkillsNet Ireland, and I would agree with him. This is an exemplar organisation that steers and supports skills and training programmes in partnership with education sector and industry. SkillNet has a really good record of improving competitiveness, of improving productivity and innovation in Irish businesses. Our amendment to this motion calls on the Minister for the Economy to work with her counterparts in the Irish Government and with higher education institutions across the island of Ireland to create an all-island talent development agency, and it could be SkillsNet Ireland. We're not being prescriptive about it, but it has to be, and we do believe that it's important because the challenges that we face as an economy here does not stop at the border. Skill gaps don't stop at the border. Business needs do not stop at the border either. And we already have economic corridors that need to be unlocked. It is time that we created educational corridors too. And in the North West, there is no reason why Ulster University at Magee and the Atlantic Technology University in Donegal cannot work hand in hand to develop skills of the future workforce. And in fact they do, and they do it very effectively. Go ahead.
I appreciate you giving way, and I have a lot of time. I agree with everything you said to this point, Sinead, but in anything that I said or anything the motion said, was there any part of that that said we wouldn't work together to deliver for the people across border?
No, but your motion said that to create an organisation, a development agency, similar to SkillsNet, and yes, but what we're saying is we need an all-island talent development agency, and that could be SkillsNet because it's there and it's exemplar and it is best practice. There are other skills talent agencies throughout Europe that are doing really good work as well and working in those cross-jurisdiction areas as well in order to meet the needs of businesses in those countries as well. And that kind of cooperation it's not really a luxury, and it's not even an aspiration, it's an absolute necessity. Our businesses are crying out for workers, our hospitality sector is struggling. Brexit has made recruitment really even harder, particularly for the skilled labour workforce. And if we fail now to invest in our people, in apprenticeships, in further education, in higher education, in cross-border collaboration, we will continue to hold ourselves back. The truth is, the island of Ireland has extraordinary potential, but too often we choose to neglect the opportunities that lie right here in our back door and across the border. And that has been a fatal mistake, and it's one that we can no longer afford to make. So by creating an all-island talent development agency, call it SkillsNet Ireland if you want, we can ensure that the skills development is aligned to what businesses actually need, and we can give our young people the best possible chance of building a career right here at home, and we can send a clear message that regional balance and cross-border partnerships are not optional extras but essential elements of our future success. So I urge colleagues to support our amendment and to see it as an enhancement of the substantive motion. Let's not commit not to just to more investment, not just to more apprenticeships, not just to funding our universities properly, but to doing it in a way that works across this island, that supports every region, and that ensures no young person is left behind. Now is not the time to fail 19,000 young people who are waiting for us to act. It is time to unlock the full potential of Magee. It's time to protect our universities and colleges. It's time to ensure investment is fair and regionally balanced. It's time to deliver a careers portal. It's time to seize the opportunities of an all-island approach to skills, to education and to the economy. That is the vision that the SDLP is offering through this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Sinead. I call Padraig Delargy.
Gurmaiget pre-last Cancolia, and I want to thank both the proposer of the motion and of the amendment. I think it's been a good conversation so far, but the key word that's jumping out at me in all of this is collaboration, and I think that's collaboration in the north between the Department of Economy and the Department for Economy and Department of Education, but it's collaboration with our employers, with our schools, colleges, but right across our country as well, to make sure that there is a role for the government in the south, for agencies, because we do know that there are regional disparities and that those speak particularly to border communities like my own. A few months ago here we passed a motion calling on the Department for Education to reform their funding model for sixth form colleges, and I think that is at the crux of all of this, because when we have students in school who don't have the same access to further education and to those opportunities as they do to staying at school, then that fundamentally creates and enhances the skill gaps that are there. I do think that that needs to be progressed and that we need to continue to do work on this, and I appreciate that people from right across the committee have been working on that as well. But I would say within that, schools are compelled to keep students because of that funding model. So if we change that, that enhances the offering for schools themselves in terms of being able to offer more focused courses, but also of our further education colleges in terms of offering and enhancing the skill sets that are there. But we've also heard from a number of colleges and employers who have difficulty accessing skills, and I think that that's something that as a committee we need to do a lot of work on, because we know that a lot of the new jobs, the emerging jobs that are coming out, are coming from routes that are outside of the traditional routes, and particularly the engagement with employers and innovators is key to building on that. I do think going back to further education, I think that was one omission from the motion. It was probably unintentional, I would imagine, but I think there was in the motion a focus probably more on higher education than on further education, and I think it's just something that we need to be cognizant of going forward, because we all recognise the role that our colleges have in our communities, particularly addressing the skill gaps that are there. But we know that the skills academies that they build and bring as well. I speak from my own experience in Derry around Fintry, Alchemy, as Sinead's mentioned, and the other companies that have really benefited from that, I suppose, really responsive thing that they get from the colleges to actually bring forward those academies and to bring those skills gaps and address them. I also completed, as many of you know, a Skill Up course on productivity, because it was something that when I came into this brief I wasn't as sure on, and I think that that is proven that Skill Up can be really useful for people across all sectors, all ages, young people, people who are in part-time employment, full-time employment, and as you've said, people who are yet to be employed and who are on that journey. So I think it's important to recognise that there's opportunities there for all people across our society, but particularly those who are struggling and who are outside that system at the minute. That is one piece of work that has been brought forward to address that skills gap, but another piece which has been working really well, and I meet with businesses and with students who are constantly telling me about higher level apprenticeships and how well they're getting on in those. So I think that while I totally understand and appreciate what both the motion and the amendment are bringing forward, we also have to appreciate that there's a huge amount of work going on already in our schools, colleges, communities and our universities as well. Recently we've seen the launch of quite a few tech clusters in the Northwest. There's been huge ongoing work between ATU, Northwest Regional College, ETBs and also Ulster University. That's something that we need to foster and that we need to encourage. So I think it speaks to the motion. And the digital hubs are obviously going to become an increasingly large part of that as we move forward. And members will know it is obviously a part of the motion that has been brought forward, but about the All-Ireland work that we as a party in Sinn Féin already do. I've worked extensively on trying to get the CAO alignment in terms of result states, easier access from students from the north going to the south, and vice versa, because the reality is we do have an All-Ireland economy, we have similar skill gaps, and we need to be addressing those on an All-Ireland basis. So I think that I will be supporting the motion. I'll also be supporting the amendment, because I think it's important that we do look at this in an All-Ireland context, and we look at the skill gaps that we have right across the basis here.
Thank you, Padraig. I call Philip Brett.
Deputy Speaker, and I welcome the opportunity to contribute to this important debate, and I think the manner in which members have spoken today is reflective of the consensus that exists on our committee, that we want to see the best possible opportunities for all of our young people in every corner of Northern Ireland. And yes, that includes the Northwest, 100%. At its heart of this motion, though, as Mr Honeyford had outlined, is a simple truth that if we want to continue to grow our economy, we must invest in our people. Northern Ireland has been fortunate in attracting significant investment in recent years, from advanced manufacturing to fintech, from aerospace to the creative industries. New jobs and opportunities have come to every corner of Northern Ireland. But too often, Madam Principal Deputy Speaker, opportunities are missed by our young people because the skills are not in place. The statistics which have been outlined by all previous speakers are stark, that according to the Northern Ireland Statistical and Research Agency, 25,000 young people here in Northern Ireland are not in education, employment or training. That is more than 1 in 8 young people between the age of 16 and 24 years old, and that is not a sustainable position, because behind those figures is on hold or potential of those young people being wasted and them not feeling the value that they actually have and being able to utilise their full potential. At the same time, nearly 40,000 job vacancies were reported here in 2022, with more than a third left unfilled due to a lack of skills or qualifications among applicants. That mismatch must be addressed urgently. It was the DUP Minister who delivered the 10X skills strategy, setting out a roadmap on how we could upskill and retain our workforce to meet the demands of the modern economy. And already some of the speakers have already articulated some of the outworkings of that strategy, because that strategy recognised the need to rebalance education towards STEM, which the Minister for Education has now continued just last week with the announcement of additional bursaries for those teachers who are in prime and important subjects, to expand technical and professional pathways, and to embed a culture of lifelong learning. And I would encourage anyone, if it be as young as Mr Delargy or older, to take advantage of the Skill Up programme. And I know that the member for East Antrim, who will speak later, also engaged in one of those courses, and they, supported by the Department for the Economy, are an excellent resource. Regrettably, though, the Northern Ireland Audit Office and the Public Accounts Committee have highlighted the slow pace of delivery of that strategy and have pointed to a lack of alignment between government departments, which Mr Delargy has articulated both here and in committee on a regular basis. This issue does need to be fixed, but the answer in our view is not to abandon the 10X strategy or create another new layer of agencies and structures in an already crowded landscape. Instead, we should focus on implementing the strategy properly and coming forward with additional support mechanisms of how we can do that, and that's why we will support the Alliance motion. We also need to look at the apprenticeship scheme we have here in Northern Ireland. I'm sure, like you, Madam Principal Deputy Speaker, I am contacted on an almost weekly basis by young people unable to secure an apprenticeship place. And it's now in a case where it's not what you know, but who you know, and it tends to be those who have family connections or know someone in that trade. So I think as a committee, and I know the Minister will be committed to this, we need to continue to focus on how we ensure that all young people have that opportunity to get the apprenticeship that they deserve. So we will support the motion that is before us today. That's how we build a stronger economy, a fairer society, and ensure that Northern Ireland works for everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Philip. I call Diana Armstrong.
Principal Deputy Speaker. The Ulster Unionist Party wants to see a prosperous Northern Ireland, one where the economy works for everyone, providing access to good jobs, fair wages and opportunities extended to all. Skills development is key. It is a natural conduit between potential and opportunity. When skills match business needs, everyone benefits, the individual, the employer and Northern Ireland as a whole. And it is right today to acknowledge the success of Invest NI, where we have seen significant progress in the past year. Invest NI has invested £631 million into our economy across over 2,000 projects, exceeding its targets by 20%. These projects are expected to create 3,020 new high-quality jobs across Northern Ireland. 73% of those jobs in 24-25 are paying above the Northern Ireland private sector median wage. Yes, many of these jobs stem from existing linkages between further and higher education and industry. This is tangible evidence of the valuable collaborative work being done between our educational institutions and the business sector. However, according to the UK Employer Skills Survey 2024, there are around 33,400 employees in Northern Ireland with skills gaps. Employers have told me directly that graduates often lack sufficient practical skills for the roles they are entering and require significant induction training. This suggests a clear gap in identifying and developing on-the-job aptitudes, even among our graduates. We have heard also about the 25,000 young people not in education, employment or training. That is equivalent to 12.4% of all 16 to 24-year-olds in Northern Ireland, and that is potential we want to see developed. The Ulster Unionist Party can see the merit in the motion, but looking to the amendment, we cannot support the amendment, as this is proposing creating yet another layer of unnecessary bureaucracy. Are we not in danger of diverting scarce resources to create yet more agencies that replace the local enterprise partnerships and the labour market partnerships which were established under the previous Minister's economic sub-regional plan? Are any new learning or initiatives to support skill development in Northern Ireland should feed into these established local partnerships, building on local knowledge and collaboration? We already have the Northern Ireland Skills Council in further education. We've seen the HATS initiative in tourism. We would call also on collaboration between the Department of the Economy, the Department of Education, to develop the Careers Portal and take this work forward. A quick search of the Shared Prosperity Fund for Northern Ireland reveals that at least 18 agencies or programmes across the province that support skills development for the economically inactive, that's the 16 to 24-year-olds from disadvantaged backgrounds, women, the over 50s, and those with disabilities or health conditions. These programmes offer flexible upskilling and training. That is not to say we cannot learn from the outworkings of SkillNet Ireland, which supports over 18,000 businesses in the Republic. But why deviate away from our largest jobs market in the United Kingdom? In conclusion, we must support those disconnected from work or education. We cannot accept persistent skills gaps while employers are crying out for talent. Use the resources already in place and build a skills ecosystem rooted in local engagement, targeting those most in need. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. I call Emma Sheeran.
I get Priulash Concordia and I rise, like others, in support of the motion today and welcome it's coming before the House. Obviously, this is something that we're all dealing with when we're contacted by constituents, and I think it's important that we highlight the role of Alma White in the campaign there for our young people with special additional needs and the between two stools situation that they often find themselves in. I think my colleague, Mr Delargy, has already outlined the fact that the department are working on this, and this is something that we want to see progressed, and the need for the change to the funding models that lies with the Department for Education in terms of how our schools are almost pressured to keep students to A level when they perhaps know that it's not the right fit for them. And I suppose in that regard, I would like to commend the work of schools, particularly in my own constituency, who are thinking outside the box and who are engaging with local businesses and showing our young people opportunities beyond the sort of traditional academic route. And I think particularly of St Colum's High in Ballinasgreen, who last year held a job fair and invited local employers in and got young people talking to to people who they potentially could work with in the future, and showing people that there are different routes to success and there are different career paths open to them, and it's not always, you know, a GCSE A-level university route, which oftentimes doesn't work for people. I also at this point want to highlight the work of the South West College, again just in the Mid-Ulster Council area, who do an awful lot of work around apprenticeships, and I was delighted to attend their open day back in the spring and met so many really inspiring young people who are refreshing in their outlook and are taking the bull by the horns and learning new trades and getting into fields of work that weren't even in existence when I was at school, in terms of robotics and AI and these different technologies, and learning how to adapt and develop their skills in relation to all of that. So I suppose in summary, without repeating everything that's already been said, I think this has been a very collegiate debate, and we're all on the same page. We all want to see our young people afforded more opportunities and improving their skills, and in that regard supportive of the motion and the amendment.
Thank you. I call Cheryl Brownlee.
I'm Principal Deputy Speaker, and I'm actually really delighted to speak on this motion. Whilst I'm not a member of the committee, the Public Accounts Committee actually discussed this, and we had an inquiry, and it was extremely interesting, and we got the MOR recently, and it was very interesting as well. So I just wanted to say, you know, what we really want to do is obviously build a thriving society in Northern Ireland, and addressing the skills gap for our young people and businesses is of course at the heart of that. We have had significant investment here into Northern Ireland, but despite that we know that opportunities can still continue to be missed, and the skills gap remains wide, and in many cases it isn't closing. But as part of the Public Accounts Committee inquiry into skills, we heard a very powerful and concerning evidence, and that was from the Youth Assembly. One of the things that really struck out to me was the fact that they didn't actually know what skills that the Northern Ireland economy needed. And the careers advice that they received, whilst clearly well-intentioned, it was inconsistent across the region. And while some schools offered really, really good careers advice, we did see that others really lacked the capacity and the resources to do this. And obviously this will have a massive impact then on the economy further down the line, especially for these young people. We also discovered that there was a clear mismatch between supply and demand, with many young people applying for courses that were already oversaturated, whilst the critical skills area where jobs were waiting remained short of applicants. And there was also a really clear takeaway that struck me. So after the discussion with the Youth Assembly, we as a committee sat down and we talked, and we couldn't clearly define the skills Northern Ireland actually needed to thrive. And I think that was a real wake-up call for all of us, because regardless of how many strategies that we have or action plans that we write, the really simple message is, how do we communicate the simple things? You know, what are the skills that are needed to build our future here and thrive in Northern Ireland? I've also been a huge advocate of the Skill Up programme, but personally I took part in the Women in Leadership course, and I was provided professional coaching, and I would not have been able to access that otherwise. And I was shocked at what courses were available, the level of the courses that were available, and the fact that these are all free and accessible for everyone. So I'm aware of that. Everybody I speak to, I tell them how amazing this is, but it's how we get that message out. And I have seen, you know, billboards, I have seen social media advertisements for it, but it's how we target that everybody has access to that incredible resource that Northern Ireland is offering. But Speaker, and I'm really pleased, actually this was mentioned at the start of the debate, but it's special educational needs and disabilities. One of the figures that we had looked at within the committee's work was the number of young people in SEN that were not in education, employment or training was almost 5 times as higher as the general population. And too often these young people are a forgotten voice in debates like this. But I'm really glad today that they haven't been, and that this is what we're talking about. But there's enormous talent within this community, and speak for those children with autism. They have incredible strengths in pattern recognition, attention to detail, logical reasoning, and skills that many employers are actually craving out for. This is what they actually need. But I was actually looking at companies like Microsoft and JP Morgan Chase in America, who have actually built autism at work programs, and it's not just because it's the right thing to do, But what they've actually seen is these employees are actually outperforming their peers. And this is something that we should be leading on. We should be actually tapping into that incredible talent and giving businesses the tools and the confidence to do the same, but also having that mindset shift. This isn't an add-on or an addition. This is actually an incredible skill that we already have here in Northern Ireland. The committee also recommended that the department establish a data sharing agreement, and we've discussed data here today, and it's something that we really, really need to get a grip on, not just on this motion, but right across, I think, everything we're discussing. We need good quality data, and we need a timetable and transparency about this moving forward. So we've discussed, and the figures already being talked about our 19,000 young people that are not in education, employment or training. And this isn't just a societal problem, this is a crisis. But what I want to say in finishing, I was given the opportunity with an internship, and I think it is absolutely critical that we support our young people with internships, apprenticeships, and we value every single skill that is available, and we help them to ensure that Northern Ireland continues to lead the way. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheryl, I call Michelle Guy.
Thank you, Principal Deputy Speaker. I really love this motion. It's got ambition, it seeks to emulate best practice, and it's focused on giving young people hope and opportunity, and in some circumstances a reason to stay here in Northern Ireland. And that's something that speaks to me personally as a parent, but also as an elected representative. When asked what motivates me to be in politics, my answer is often, I want Northern Ireland to be a place my kids don't have to leave to be successful. To realise that ambition, we need exciting, dynamic and innovative educational and training opportunities that cater for different aptitudes and interests of our learners, matched to the needs of both our businesses and critical public services such as healthcare. Right now, those opportunities simply aren't there in the way we would like, and I caution against anyone seeking to demonise young people as lazy or unmotivated when the pathways to succeed simply are so limited. And I especially want to highlight, as others have done, our young people with special educational needs and disabilities who often need extra support to realise their potential. But right now they have limited opportunities available. Northern Ireland continues to have the largest disability employment gap, of all the regions across the United Kingdom. The latest figures report that the employment rate for disabled people in Northern Ireland is 38.3%, while the rate for those without a disability is 85.9%. Addressing the needs of these young people must be central to any approach, and I echo the recognition for Alma White and her work on Caleb's cause, highlighting the neglect of our post-19 SEN young people. This motion recognises that some great work has happened in linking business investment with skills development. We have seen that through the skills academies, for example. However, every person in this place, when we go into local businesses, will hear that we have huge skills gaps that are stifling growth. So when we take that fact and set it beside the fact that we have 25,000 16 to 24-year-olds not in education, employment or training, we have to see that for what it is. A red flag telling us that we need to do something different if we are to meet this challenge. It has never been more important to get the structures right around skills development. Things are changing so fundamentally with AI, it is impossible for government, which reacts slowly, to respond quickly enough to the needs of businesses and other industries. That is why the motion proposes a talent development agency to emulate SkillNet in the South. We have a huge number of innovative businesses that want to develop staff. They want to build skills and expand, however they need support to link with our training providers. We have also time and time again talked about the need for parity of esteem between schools, further education and higher education. We need collaboration, not siloed working as we have now. That vision is driven by the top at ministerial level. The Independent Review of Education provided clear recommendations for how this could be done and a vision for what could be achieved. For example, that report spoke of young people from 14 onwards being able to participate in a wide range of education pathways, including vocational and technical education and work-based learning. That requires collaboration between education providers and workplaces of all kinds. And there are examples of this happening across Northern Ireland. Recently, David and I visited a local manufacturing company, Leprino, in Maherlin, and we saw how they are bringing together young people through vocational opportunities such as apprenticeships, as well as offering placements to university undergraduates and upskilling existing staff members to ensure they have the right mix of skills and experience to meet their business need. But not all businesses are at the scale to provide such a range of opportunities. So our version of the SkillNet model can provide a vital role matching the needs of SMEs with trainees seeking employment opportunities or opportunities to learn. Seeking to leverage opportunities across the island of Ireland is a no-brainer. And we have spoken repeatedly about the need to work on a cross-border basis, especially in terms of further and higher education, and this will continue. But in terms of the SDLP amendment, it effectively removes the central tenet of the motion, which is a call on our local economy minister to take focused action here and establish a local agency. There is nothing within our motion that would stop a talent development agency working in partnership with SkillNet Ireland. We would of course expect nothing else. We would also expect the talent development agency to work in partnership with Scotland, Wales and England. I hope members across this chamber today embrace the vision of this motion. I worked in the private sector here for years in the technology sector, and I know the talent and vision of our business leaders here who are capable and eager to expand our economy, but government must act as an enabler. Developing skills is essential and must be a shared aspiration for us all.
Time's up, Michelle.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Much appreciated. I call Donny Baker.
And I welcome this debate today because it goes to the very heart of what we want for the next generation: opportunity, fairness and a future where they can thrive, a future for all of our young people. When we talk about addressing skill gaps, we are not just talking about statistics or strategies. We are talking about lived experiences of our young people in our schools, in our colleges, apprenticeships and in workplaces across the North. A significant step has been the ongoing review into the career service. Too often, young people and parents have told us that careers advice can feel inconsistent or too narrow, not reflecting the opportunities in the modern economy. By carrying out this review, the Minister has ensured that that service is being reshaped, giving young people the best possible guidance, grounded in the real needs of our economy and the ambitions of our communities and young people. The Minister has also taken forward the 14 to 19 strategy, which is about creating clear and flexible pathways for young people as they move from school into further education, training and employment. That strategy recognises that not every young person takes the same route, that success should not be defined by a single path. Whether that's in A-levels, apprenticeships, vocational courses or degrees, every young person deserves that support to follow their talents. Skills are not the responsibility of the Department for Economy alone. They are shaped in our schools, our communities and in the support services available to our young people. Young people are ambitious. They want to contribute, to succeed and to see a future here. It is our responsibility to ensure that the structures are in place to support them. That means careers advice that is modern and relevant. It means strategies like the 14 to 19 strategy that give choice and flexibility. And it means government departments are working together and not in silos. That is the work that the Minister has been delivering on and is the work already making a difference and which deserves our full support.
Thank you, Danny. Our next speaker is the Minister for the Economy, and Minister, you'll have up to 15 minutes to respond to the debate. Thank you.
And I really welcome the opportunity to respond to the motion today. I welcome any opportunity to speak about skills, and I say all the time because it's true, skills underpins and are critical to the delivery of all four of my economic objectives. Skills are a key driver of productivity. Developing people's skills helps people to take up good jobs. New skills will be needed to deliver on the transition to net zero, and by ensuring that we invest in skills right across the North, we can improve regional balance. That's why last year we invested £250 million in our universities, which includes £13 million of funding specifically for the McGee expansion and £310 million in our colleges. And I have continued, despite the very challenging budgetary situation we have, to prioritise investment in skills development and mentoring and careers advice for young people not in education, employment or training. We have committed a further £7 million this year to continue and expand on this important work. I was also delighted to launch the Apprenticeship Inclusion Challenge Fund in October last year. Funding of up to £100,000 over 18 months will go to 6 successful applicant organisations from across the business, community and education sectors. And just last Friday I was in Derry for the opening of the new Women's Tech facility in the North West, and they are delivering on one of the Challenge Fund projects. Significant investments are also being made to boost digital and cyber skills across the region, such as Allstate's £16 million upskilling initiative and Queen's University's new cyber security AI tech hub. Apprenticeships have seen impressive growth with a 39% increase since 2019, and higher level apprenticeships increasing 8-fold since 2017. In addition, new initiatives such as the Apprenticeship Inclusion Challenge Fund and the Apprenticeship Action Plan are ensuring apprenticeships are more accessible and inclusive. In recent months, I published the Green Skills Action Plan, which is providing a clear framework for collaboration on future green jobs. This approach will help create clearer pathways into training and employment, particularly for young people currently not in education, employment and training. And like other members in the Chamber today, I'm very concerned by the recent increases that we have seen in the numbers of our young people not in education, employment or training, and have asked officials to look at the potential reasons behind that. And I think it's something that we have increasingly seen in our schools as well, with young people increasingly facing challenges in going to school, and more young people with anxiety and being in the kind of school refuser category. So I think there is a challenge for us across the board in trying to address those issues. Ensuring that we do have pathways for people who face barriers, whatever those might be, is a real priority for me. And I think it is important that we work not just across departments, but with our community organisations, who very often are the people on the front line supporting individuals on their journeys. And I think we, as members across the Chamber, have referred to today, particularly our young people with special educational needs and people with disabilities. We do have particular challenges, and Michelle referred to the how we perform poorly compared to other regions, and that's something I am really keen to look at how we can address, not just from the perspective of ensuring the pathways are there, but also if there's work that we can do with employers to remove barriers to help people into jobs as well. And Cheryl mentioned the work that was being done in some companies, I think in the States, and we have companies here who are doing similar things in terms of supporting people with neurodivergence and creating the right circumstances and environment for people to take up posts. I think that's work that we can absolutely build on and ensure that we are mainstreaming good practice. My department will soon publish its Skills Action Plan, which will outline the concrete steps my department will take, along with our partners, to continue to build the dynamic, innovative and highly skilled workforce we need here in the North. The social enterprise sector also plays a vital role in bridging skills gaps. Recent research indicates 11% of social enterprises provide access to education and improve skills development, and that over half are located in areas of high deprivation. Greater cross-departmental collaboration is also underway, with the Departments for Economy and Education working together on shared priorities such as careers, special educational needs and post-16 pathways. And just to reassure the proposer and other members, it's something that I see as absolutely vital, particularly in the context of the financially constrained environment that we are operating in and continuing to operate, or likely to be continuing to operate in. And I'll be meeting with the Education Minister in coming weeks on this agenda and how we work together. And I believe that he too is committed to this work and greater cross-departmental collaboration. Despite the good work that we are doing, challenges do remain. The proposer mentioned the skills barometer and the projections in relation to job growth, which of course is a good thing, by 1 million by 2033, but we do face an annual shortfall of 5,400 workers and significant skills gaps, particularly in AI, digital, cybersecurity and green industries. The recent rise of young people not in education, employment or training, as I said, is a real concern. Initiatives like the Open University and Libraries NI pilot are helping at-risk pupils develop study skills, a first step towards re-engaging in education. Programmes like Skills for Life and Work, delivered flexibly by FE colleges, support those with low or no prior achievement to progress towards further education, employment or apprenticeships. While higher education isn't always a direct route for these young people, I will launch a public consultation this autumn on a new widening participation strategy to make higher education more accessible. Supporting our young people to gain the skills and qualifications they need is essential to widening our talent pool and ensuring equal access to quality employment. This motion proposes establishing a talent development agency similar to SkillNet Ireland or other European models. The amendment suggests I work with my counterparts in the Irish Government on the creation of an all-island talent development agency. My department is already engaged in constructive dialogue with Irish Government counterparts through a range of cross-border initiatives. One great example of cross-border collaboration is the Peace Plus programme. Through this, my department is working closely with colleagues in the South to build a stronger all-island skills system. Our further education colleges and universities are working closely with partners in the South to deliver training in key areas like green skills and digital technologies. We've also seen strong engagement between the Northern Ireland Skills Council and the National Skills Council in the South, helping to shape shared priorities across the island. Green skills have been identified as a promising starting point, with further potential in areas like AI. I am keen to explore additional collaborative approaches to skills development, and in the meantime, our current approach remains guided by the principle of sectoral alignment. The SkillNet model's strength lies in its sector-based collaboration, bringing together businesses and education providers to address evolving skills needs. And it's worth saying that our colleagues in the South very much view this as a mutually beneficial relationship, that they have learning from us as well, and that we have initiatives that they are very keen to learn from and to see if they can similarly deliver in the South. The work of the approach of SkillsNet Ireland in terms of that sectoral collaboration very closely aligns with the Department's sectoral action plans that were launched by my predecessor, Minister Murphy, last year to support 7 of our most innovative sectors. Addressing the skills gap, of course, is not a single intervention. It is a system-wide challenge. It requires collaboration, as my colleague referred to earlier, across government, education, business and communities. And therefore, I'm very happy to look at what more we can learn from the SkillNet model. I share the Assembly's ambition to make economic opportunity the foundation for social justice and reconciliation. And that's why I will continue to prioritise investment in skills, support for young people and those with specific needs, and deeper collaboration with business. So I look forward to working with members, stakeholders and communities to build a skills system that is fit for the future and works for everyone.
Thank you, Minister. I call Cara Hunter to wind on the amendment and advise a carry of 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Principal Deputy Speaker. In the SDLP, we firmly believe that young people are the foundation of our future and must have access to the right skill sets to help both them and our businesses prosper. We believe that the upskilling of our thousands of young people across NI is key to unlocking and creating a stronger and more resilient economy across the North. I welcome the opportunity to wind today on our amendment, which strikes at the heart of the future of our economy here and the urgent need to address the skills gap and uplift the lives and minds of our young people. For years, I, like many, have watched family members, cousins, friends and school classmates move to Australia, to America, to Canada and beyond to seek opportunities, job vacancies, higher wages, and just really getting easier access to upskill and to learn. These are all people who love where they're from, they're very proud to be from the north, but cannot see themselves building a life here for them or their families due to a number of contributing factors, from rising childcare costs, the cost of living, and for many it's also the challenges of getting access to a university course that they desperately want to get into right here at home. For young people, they face many challenges, and the duty is on us to figure out how we can keep them right here at home and help them prosper. Regional balance, as previously mentioned by many in this House, is very important to highlight here. Benefits of growth belong to us all, and I feel strongly, as does my colleague Sinead McLaughlin, that not enough is currently being done to achieve regional balance, with a particular focus, of course, in the North West, which I feel is greatly felt by our constituents. Moving quickly on to other members' comments, David Honeyford mentioned the important point that we must all look to our future and not to our past here to ensure our young people do have access to opportunities, and most importantly, ensuring that they feel empowered. Also, both he and the Minister mentioned AI, so I feel it necessary to declare an interest, as I do an hour of a month of consultancy work on AI ethics. Other comments from those across the House. Padraig Delargy said it is vital that we acknowledge current work is being done by our schools and by our universities, but there is more left to do. Philip Brett detailed something very important, which is many people feel it is not what you know, but who you know, and I don't think any of us across this House back that kind of environment or circumstances. It's not fair, and it's not what we want to see. We want our young people to feel empowered, have the skill sets, and have access to opportunities based off merit and education. Diane from the UUP stated that greater collaboration is needed between the education and the economy ministers with these matters, and we wholeheartedly agree. Finally and briefly, just touching on our amendment today, we don't seek to be pedantic on this. We feel it really reinforces the need for collaboration and connecting and recognising on an all-island basis mutual benefit, and recognising that our lives, our families, our employment, our opportunities don't recognise a border. For example, if you're living in Uri and there's access to jobs or opportunities in Drogheda or Dundalk, or there's a skill gap, we feel that our approach through this amendment would assist in what currently exists to address issues like this. To conclude, the SDLP is calling upon the Economy Minister to work closely with her counterparts across this island to ensure we close the skills gap and give each and every young person right across the north the best opportunity to build a life for themselves right here at home, whether it's north or south of the border. Thank you.
Thank you, Cara. I call Kelly Armstrong to conclude and wind up on the motion, and advise you, Kelly, of 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Principal Deputy Speaker. Do you know what? It's not too often that we come to this chamber and actually have a motion that we all agree on. And I have to say that as a mum, as someone who loves living here, that giving our young people opportunities to be here, to have something that they can value in themselves, to earn and to enjoy life is key. And any of us around this room, that would be something that we want for our young people. As the motion says, we've already started off well. We know that employment is going well, but 25,000 young people in Northern Ireland are currently not in employment training. And what are we going to do about that? And I believe that the skills work that the Minister is doing will pay dividends, but there are a few things that we need to look forward to. And I thank those who have been working on skills for this last period of time: David Honeyford, Michelle Guy, Kate Nicholl, and those of you around the room who have spoken today in this. Thank you so much, because our young people are the key to our economy going forward. We need to give them hope, we need to give them opportunities, and we need to give them chances in life. I am very concerned at what Labour's at. You know, when they talk about young people who are not in employment having benefits taken away from them if they don't find work within 18 months is concerning. And as somebody who sits in the Communities Committee, I go, really? Should we not be looking at supporting those young people rather than already talking about taking something away from them? We know that the Minister for Education is consulting on keeping children in school until they're 18, and that will require them to have participation in education, training and apprenticeships. And we look forward to hearing the outcome of that consultation, because that's another move forward. However, it can't be what the Chancellor of the Exchequer has talked about, this youth guarantee, that they will be put into work but that work could be nothing that they're interested in, not what their skills are towards, and it may be for the most minimum wage possible. That takes the heart out of a young person. So let's think about what are the opportunities. I think SkillsNet Ireland is a good model to follow, but it's not just north-south, it's also east-west that we need to be working hard and looking outside to Europe and other places of what models that we can work towards to deliver better for these 25,000 young people. And as Sinead McLaughlin has said, skills gaps do not stop at the border. We need to think about the successes of others and take that forward. There does need to be greater alignment between skills development and further and higher education. So, what skills does Northern Ireland hear? As we heard earlier from Cheryl Brownlee, the Youth Forum said that they didn't know what skills Northern Ireland need, and I have to say this comes back to the cooperative partnerships that we need to see between departments. Why are we allowing young people to choose GCSEs without telling them what those GCSEs are going to get them? So instead of giving careers advice when they're 15 or 16, we should be talking to those children and their families as soon as they start big school. So we look at 12, 13, 14-year-olds before they picked their GCSEs. And I was delighted to be involved with a number of schools who started to do that, bringing employers in before GCSEs were picked to give young people ideas about what the future can hold, what jobs pay, what might be an option for them going forward. And for some young people, especially vulnerable young people living in disadvantaged communities, having that ability to see beyond is something that we need to grow. Those opportunities that we need to give those young people. So when we ask what skills does Northern Ireland need, this is over to the Department for the Economy. Where's the businesses coming forward? What are they telling us that they need now and for those jobs that are coming in the future? Whenever I was at school, every Tom, Dick and Harry wanted to be a nurse, and then it was like, nobody be a nurse because we've got far too many nurses. Today, AI, cryptocurrencies, cyber security, all of this stuff. My goodness, we didn't really even have computers when I was going to school. This jobs of the future. This is what our young people need to know about. And I have to say that our career service within schools needs to take a big step up, because I don't think that careers and teachers are necessarily the right people to tell children about what careers are out there, because when you've been through school, university, teacher training colleges and into a school to work, you haven't experienced all of that outside world. So I would love to hear more about businesses coming forward to help with that careers, to go into schools and to talk about the options that are available. Just to say that apprentices, we've heard it today, it was on the radio today, I've had plenty of emails through from constituents as well. When you have young people who get accepted into a further education college but they don't have a business that's going to give them their placements. We need to identify those placements to ensure that those young people are being trained towards a job for the future, potentially with the people who they've got their placement. We do need to provide that talent pool for businesses, but we also need businesses to be part of the development of apprenticeships to ensure that when the apprentices are brought forward, that they're being trained in what they need for their jobs. Talking about children with physical or special education needs, we have far, far too many of our young people who don't see work as an opportunity for them because of their disability. And I have to say, from my prior life, I know that most of the barriers to getting work is not their skills, it's transport. So the Department of Infrastructure needs to come into this. If you look at any surveys that are done with young people, and the All-Party Group on Disability went to Fleming Fulton School, and they talked about work placements, and they were told they needed to get a bus from school, for instance, into the centre of town. Because they're wheelchair users, only one of them could go on the bus at the time. It's very isolating, so we need to think better about the whole life experience of young people with special education needs or physical disabilities and what will help them get to work. We need to ask ourselves, do the qualifications that we are providing for young people today through schools and further education colleges and higher education, are they actually going to provide the skills that our employers need? Now, I admit, I am the one and only Byzantine Studies graduate in 1993 at Queen's University. It was something that Simon Hamilton and I shared. We're both ancient history students. What job was I going to get out of that? And I have to say that my postgraduate training in the Graduate Management Development Programme of those days is the one that took me into sales and marketing, because I wasn't getting a job in Byzantine Studies, let's face it. maybe some people will say maybe I'm still talking ancient history, but we need to look at our skills. And I remember sitting in a room with a lot of transport people, because I ended up working in transport, as you do with Byzantine studies, and the person at the front said, what do you get if you have a degree in ancient history? And I went, well, I'm sitting here beside you giving legal advice to the department, but there we go. But training or learning for learning's sake is important, but training for a job is equally as important. So we need to look to see if our qualifications are providing the skills that we need, and are we supporting the children and their families to think about the choices that will provide them with the best opportunities. I sometimes look at my past education, Latin. It was handy enough, I have to say, for doing legal stuff, but are we teaching the right languages? Are we teaching the right IT skills, AI skills, all of that through skills? So I'm glad to hear that the Minister is talking about a skills action plan, and that she has also included social enterprises in that. I had the absolute pleasure of talking to Edith and the guys at Mind the Gap about their cross-border work that they're doing for people with disabilities, looking at how they could improve businesses to understand the needs of people with disabilities and to bring those people forward to make sure that their skills were going to be aligned with potential work opportunities. So a skills action plan that ties all of that together is important if we are to achieve social justice. No young person in Northern Ireland should be left behind. We do not want to hear that there are Protestant boys being left behind or that there are disadvantaged communities left behind. We want opportunities to be out there for all. And this motion is calling on the Minister to establish a talent development agency to provide that alignment between skills and development in further and higher education, and to identify what businesses here require. I'd love to keep as many of our young people here, earning, working and spending their money here in Northern Ireland. When Northern Ireland is busy and at peace with itself, we do much better, and we've seen that before. Of course we want to work with the South, but of course we want to work East-West, and we want to work with Europe. We want to work with anybody that will help us bring forward those jobs that our young people will need. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kelly. So the question is that the amendment standing in the names of Sinead McLaughlin and Colin McGrath be made. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Contrary of any noes? No. I think the noes have it. The noes have it. So the question is that the motion be made, be agreed. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Contrary of any noes? The ayes have it. The ayes have it. Members, you take your ease to the next item of business, please.
Members, order. The next item of business is a motion on drug testing schemes. Clerk, please read the motion.
That this Assembly recognises the role of harm reduction initiatives in preventing drug-related deaths at festivals and concerts, acknowledges that the Health Service Executive's rapid drug checking schemes have operated successfully at events such as Electric Picnic for a number of years, providing warnings to concert goers on potent and potentially lethal substances. Notes the ongoing work between the PSNI, Forensic Sciences Northern Ireland and Queen's University to develop a rapid drug testing scheme which would enable harmful drugs to be identified and public alerts issued within 24 hours. Further notes that we remain the only part of these islands without such provisions. Stresses the need for collaboration between the Forensic Sciences Laboratory at Sea Park and the Health Service Executive, who have developed the capacity to deliver on-site drug testing at festivals across the rest of the island, and calls on the Minister of Health to confirm when these schemes will be rolled out by his department in conjunction with the relevant agencies.
Thank you. And I call Leah Flynn to move the motion.
Moved.
Thank you. The Business Committee has agreed to allow up to 1 hour 30 minutes for this debate. The proposer of the motion will have 10 minutes to propose and 10 minutes to wind. As an amendment has been selected and is published on the Marshal's list, the Business Committee has agreed that 15 minutes will be added to the total time for the debate. Please open the debate on the motion.
And I move the motion, standing in my name and that of my Sinn Féin colleagues. At the heart of this motion is a simple but powerful principle that harm reduction saves lives. We are here today to discuss an issue that is not abstract but real, immediate and deeply human. Each year, young people across these islands attend festivals and concerts to celebrate music, community and joy, yet too often these events are overshadowed by tragedy, lives cut short due to the consumption of unregulated and dangerous drugs. Harm reduction initiatives, particularly rapid drug checking services, have been shown to save lives. The question before us is not whether these schemes work, they do, but whether we are willing to act with the urgency and compassion to bring them here. Across the north, too many families know only too well the devastation of losing a loved one to drugs. And as Sinn Féin spokesperson on suicide prevention, alcohol and addiction issues, I meet regularly with families and community organisations who can see this crisis and feel this crisis up close. Their message is always the same, that many of these tragedies are preventable if we are willing to act. And I know previously we've had debates in this chamber around the Jack's Promise campaign with the Brennan family from Lenadoon in West Belfast. And that specific issue was around residential rehabilitation and providing those services for people battling with, specifically with the issues of addiction. And that's something to pick up for another conversation with the Minister and his officials following today. But it's just to give a sense that, the scale of this crisis goes wider than people, accidentally dying through taking harmful drugs. It's wider than that, the issue of drug use, of addiction, of the need for rehabilitation. So it is the scale of the crisis. The point is that we cannot underestimate it. The Department of Health's own figures show that in 22-23, nearly 3,000 people across the north sought help for problems with drugs or alcohol use. The detail is stark. More than a third were struggling with drugs alone, and over half were using drugs daily. These are not occasional users. These are people caught in the grip of addiction, living with risk every single day. And that is why harm reduction measures like rapid drug testing and drug checking are urgently needed. It's important to be clear about what we mean. Drug checking allows people to anonymously surrender substances at festivals or concerts for on-site analysis. Dangerous or contaminated pills can then be identified and public warnings can be issued within hours. Rapid drug testing is lab-based and confirms what's circulating more broadly out in society and enables health authorities to issue alerts quickly across the community. Both are essential. One protects individuals in the moment, the other protects the wider public. And the Minister, I know that himself in recent correspondence that we had shared, that I know that he acknowledges the issue and he acknowledges the difficult situation that we're faced with. And even going back as far back whenever the new substance use strategic plan was being launched last November, I think it was then that the Minister pointed out in terms of the most deprived communities and the issue that the drugs misuse deaths are almost 6 times higher in those communities as opposed to the least deprived areas, and it's a really important fact that he pointed out, and he described that at the time as unacceptable, and he was completely right. But if we accept the reality, if we accept that as the reality that it is unacceptable, we also then have to accept our responsibility, our collective responsibility, that we need to act. We need to try and do more. We need to try and put in more measures in place that might save lives, and that is the context of today's motion. We're calling for the introduction of rapid drug testing and drug checking services across the north, and we don't need to look too far to see the benefits of these schemes. At the Electric Picnic Festival in County Laois, the HSC Safer Nightlife programme has been running successfully for 4 years. Festival goers again can surrender substances for testing in a health-led, non-judgmental space. Last year, the system identified MDMA pills containing 3 times the adult dose, pills that were already causing seizures and admissions to hospitals. Within hours, an alert was issued to all attendees through the festival app, preventing critical harm, and that is the point of the motion, to try and prevent death that we can prevent at this stage if we can instil some of these new schemes. And this form of testing, it would be referred to as back-of-house testing, so it's where people can drop off the drugs anonymously. It enables the medical experts to see what's circulating and to act quickly without exposing festival goers to criminal risk. This is what a public health intervention is, but the safest choice is not to take drugs, and that's why I warmly welcome the DUP's amendment that they have submitted, and even how that amendment is introduced. You know, the first line, it's the most important amendment you could have made to our amendment, and thank you for that. It is pointing out the fact of how harmful and dangerous drugs are, and that's a very important message that we need to get out to the public who might be watching in on today's debate. But then the reality also is, for those who do make the choice to take a drug at whatever stage or at whatever circumstance in their life, that then we're trying to provide basically a safety net that might mean the difference between life and death. Scotland has established a rapid action. Yes, yeah, well.
Anyway, and one of the key points she raises is the desire to ensure that we prevent deaths. Just this morning, I spoke with a mother who lost her young son at a festival concert in Belfast due to drugs. She talked about the qualifications of those that were employed on site to monitor the drug overdose. That was wholly inadequate. In fact, some of the training was lacking. And also the transportation from the festival to the hospital was so bad that she believes it contributed to her son's death. Does she believe that this is an issue that should also be looked into with urgency?
Yes, I do, and I really thank the member for that intervention. It's really important that we're picking up that type of feedback, and sadly from that family who has already went through that devastation, we absolutely need to put all measures that we can put in place to try and, you know, prevent these deaths from happening. But also, even that process is really worrying, where you're explaining even possibly that young person not being transported to hospital in a timely manner. The training is critical. You know, when we're talking about introducing these schemes, we need to introduce them right. So whoever is involved in this work needs to have the sufficient skills to be able to deal with it. So thanks very much for providing that wee bit of feedback, Jonathan. But again, it was just to say then that we know that these models are already in place across Britain and in the south, and the Minister will know. I know I've spoke to him and to his predecessor previously around the Queen's University proposal model that's been, the pilot proposal that's been put in place by Queen's, the Forensic Sciences NI and the PSNI, who have all been part of those discussions up until this point. Queen's has indicated that the equipment to try and get this pilot, so this is for the rapid drug testing, to try and get that in place, that the testing facility could be procured for a relatively modest capital investment of £220,000, which compared to hospital beds makes it clear that this investment would be feasible. And some positive steps have been taken. The Public Health Agency, importantly, critically, has rolled out a nitazene testing strip programme across all needle exchange sites. More recently, fentanyl strips in areas where those drugs are most prevalent were introduced. And I know in response to a ministerial question recently, the Minister was updating around the NSP Direct, which is the confidential postal service, which is also now available, and all very, very important initiatives, all very, very important, and it's all of these measures can show what can be done and what difference we can make to try and protect people. But again, basically the motion is calling for the additional schemes around the drug testing and the drug checking, and the important thing is trying to get the real-time analysis, particularly at those large-scale events where substances can circulate very quickly and where the risk obviously increases. And then I know finally the motion's also calling for the joined-up system that can identify dangerous substances within hours and issue alerts to protect the public. So it's not about condoning drug use, but it's about facing a reality that we're in, that people will use and take drugs in certain circumstances, and we need to try and make that as safe as possible. So again, the Minister has often spoke about tackling stigma, and again, completely agree with him, he's totally right. Stigma will drive people into further harm, and it makes it harder for families to get support. But if we're serious about moving beyond stigma, then we need to embrace evidence-based public health measure approaches.
Thank you, and I call Paul Frew to move the amendment.
So moved.
Thank you. You have 10 minutes to propose the amendment and 5 minutes to wind. All other speakers will have 5 minutes. Please open the debate on the amendment.
I thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker, for allowing that time, and I also applaud the movers of the motion on drug testing schemes. This is a vitally important issue that affects so many families, which puts families into absolute despair. Families in despair who are dealing with addiction, families in despair when they get involved in the criminal justice system, families involved in despair, involved in health emergencies, and then families in absolute despair when they lose a loved one. And I think we all know someone who has been affected in some way with regards to drug abuse. So it's really important that this Assembly and the Executive tackles this very important and critical issue. We should be here to save lives. And this is one issue and one topic in which we could do something good. We in the DUP think it's so important that we did have it in our manifesto. We will invest in anti-drug programmes through both justice and education to tackle the scourge of drugs in all their forms in our communities and provide greater support for those at risk of suicide. We thought it's so important that we put it in our manifesto. And we thought it important too to build on this motion. And I thank and appreciate the kind words from the proposer with regards to what we've done to add to the motion through our amendment, in that the first line, that this Assembly recognises that there are no safe ways of taking illegal drugs, and that any harm reduction initiatives must complement the existing PSNI approach of identifying, arresting and placing before the courts those involved in the supply of illicit drugs. And there was a wee bit of uproar in my community, in my constituency, a number of weeks past when the PHA put out their drugs advice. And in one way I can really understand why the PHA felt that they needed to offer drugs advice. They used the words, if you choose to use drugs, dose low and go slow, stick to one drug, never use alone. And I suppose it's important that that message gets out there. But there is also so many people in my community who thought that that was irresponsible, because you would imagine a fellow drug addict advising another drug addict into how to take drugs, and that may be well something that they would say to their fellow addict. And so there is this very fine balance, and I'm not sure that PHA got it right, and it did cause a lot of alarm out there in my communities. And I think what it did do, is illustrate to the public out there that in some quarters of governance there's nearly an admission of defeat. around the law enforcement issue of drug taking and drug abuse? I will, yeah.
I thank the member for giving way, and I too would share the concern about encouraging anybody to take drugs, no matter if it's one type or another. And the example that I raised earlier about the young death of my constituent, the mother described to me how the police action has been limited due to lack of resource and pending authorisation from a senior officer about whether they will allocate funds to take on this case. Does the member agree with me that that's a wholly inadequate approach to a mother that's grieving the loss of a son?
Yes, I would, for one simple reason, and that is this: when you speak to the police commanders, no matter in what guise, whether it be through the DPPs in my time or the PCSPs, the police officers always talked about going to a market, going to the place where they believed that criminals were active, or that they were needed, or they should have had police presence. I can't think of anywhere more important in the night of a festival than a police presence at that festival, investigating, detecting, removing drugs from the ground. But let's be under no illusion. The people that we should target in a criminal justice system is the drug dealers. It is the drug dealers that peddles this poison into our communities, who destroys lives, who destroys people. And inevitably, people die because they take drugs. The harm caused by drugs is very real. To individuals, to families, or communities, and to our public services, there were 1,771 drug-related deaths in Northern Ireland between 2013 and 2023, including 169 in 2023 alone. Furthermore, in the 12 months ending the 30th of June 2025, there were 6,769 drug seizures and 3,049 drug-related arrests. Behind each of those statistics is a personal story: the pain of families left bereaved, the grief that never ends, and endless lives ruined by addiction or involvement in criminality. We accept that there is a role for a harm reduction approach, but this must not cross the line or be perceived to cross the line into condoning or normalising illicit drug use in any setting, let alone those where children and young people are found. Drugs seized must not be returned, and in no circumstances should advice be issued on so-called safe usage. This is where they cross the line. A strong police response must also be a priority, targeting the sources of supply, disrupting trafficking, prosecuting those responsible, and ensuring the courts have the tools and guidance to hand down appropriate custodial sentences. Arrangements for testing must not fetter police investigative activity, or indeed be seen as cause for police visibility to reduce in concert spaces. And this is the point I raise with my colleague Johnny Buckley. There should not be the case where the police leaves a scene because there are medical experts on the scene. I think the two must go hand in hand, and they must complement each other in order to keep people safe. Moreover, we need to see a prevention first response by the executive. This motion deals with the final stage of the journey. It assumes that illicit drugs are in circulation. We know this. That should not be the extent of our ambitions. It's simply not good enough to say there are drugs out there, people will always take drugs illegally. What can we do about it? The truth is we can do a lot more about it. And we can do a lot more in a police enforcement issue, but also a medical issue to keep people safe. There. Oh, yeah. Yep.
I thank the member for giving way briefly. I totally agree with him on the point as to the presence of police, but often they fail post-concert in following up on evidence and prosecution on those that are peddling drugs to vulnerable individuals.
Yeah, and that needs to be addressed. Absolutely, that needs to be addressed. We know there's young people, multitudes of young people at these festivals. We know that drugs are in circulation. We know from time to time that there are really dangerous substances out there that have more strength than other drugs. And whilst we must get the message out that all drug taking is wrong and all drug taking is dangerous and irresponsible, that we know then that there are occasions when there are really lethal batches of drugs going out there that will do massive damage and death to our young people. And so there has to be more intelligence around this, and that's where I think there should be collaborative working between medical experts, educational experts and the police enforcement agencies. And at no time should someone surrender drugs and then receive them back. Once we get drugs out of circulation, for every drug, for every pill that goes out of circulation, it could well save one person's life, and that's worth it, Mr. Deputy Speaker, it's worth it. So I think we support this motion, and we hope to see real progress in this regard in the future to save a family, a person going through the pain that we have all witnessed families go through. It's really awful to watch a family go through addiction, support needed, requires a criminal sanction, and then obviously that young person getting involved in the criminal justice system, and then even
time's up, and I call Danny Donnelly.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I first want to thank Orlia and the Sinn Féin MLAs for bringing this important motion to be debated here today. We have attended many events where we have spoken to people who have lost loved ones to drugs and substance overdoses. This is a very serious issue right across our society, so it's good that we are debating this here today and seeing what we can do about it. I also want to thank the DUP for bringing their amendment, and we will be supporting that today as well. I think we all know that illegal drugs should be condemned, and I unequivocally believe the first approach should be to recognise their harm and not to partake. That is the ideal. The reality, however, is that this happens no matter how much we disagree with it. We cannot deny it. And if we want to save lives, we need to give serious consideration to how models like drug checking can be adapted and introduced here in Northern Ireland in a meaningful way to tackle the crisis we are facing. We need to face facts. Northern Ireland has the second highest rate of drug-related deaths in the UK after Scotland. Young adults aged 25 to 34 account for the largest share of drug-related deaths in Northern Ireland, with the death rate in this age group more than doubling in the last decade. We cannot ignore that this is happening. And while I agree there is no safe way of taking drugs, and I urge anyone considering taking drugs never to do it, I also recognise that it is very easy to say those words and consider your moral slate clean without taking real and holistic steps, without addressing the wider issues in our society. Without testing, you can never be sure of what is in a substance or the strength of it. That is the point of testing, so that people can make an informed decision. No one deserves to die because they have made a mistake or a bad decision. This isn't about international drug gangs and the mass supply of illegal drugs. This is about young people at festivals who aren't educated on the harm of drug use, and who maybe, if they spoke to someone in a safe environment, free from judgment and harm, they may make a more informed decision. Research from Queen's University has made it clear that there is an urgent need for enhanced services, including measures like the immediate access to drug testing. Preventative measures like this are health-centred rather than punishment-centred. They are based in evidence rather than fear. In a survey from the Irish Journal of Medical Science of nearly 1,200 Irish festival goers, 87% admitted to using more than one substance. Strikingly, 93% said they would be willing to use independent drug checking services. That willingness tells us something important. People are open to making safer choices when they are given the tools and the information to do so. Drug checking acknowledges reality, that people take drugs and that young people will experiment, and provides people, especially young people, with the chance to make informed decisions. Education about risks will always be vital, but so too is empathy and honesty. Drugs are very available across all our communities, whether they be rural or urban. They are imported in huge amounts into Northern Ireland every week and are taken by many people across our society. There's a huge black market industry here, and ultimately, if there was no market for drugs, this would not exist. I would encourage young people in particular to seek out reliable information on drugs, and I would highlight the Talk to Frank website as a confidential site for doing so. Initiatives like the Loop, the UK's first systematic drug checking service, has shown what can be achieved by analysing substances and providing tailored advice. Not only helps individuals to avoid immediate harm, but also collects intelligence that can inform wider public health responses. Even the police, who are experienced in drug crime, back this stance. James Q, the former Violence Reduction Unit, Drugs Exploitation. Yes?
I thank the member for taking a quick point. Would the member agree that sharing of that information is vital, and the recent initiatives by the police in the last few years, whenever they do get access to the drug dealers' communications to alerting people, has actually been positive, and the police should be commended for taking that different approach, that it isn't just always a criminal justice matter, that you do have to work in conjunction with health.
Next minute.
Thank you. Yes, I absolutely would agree with that, and I would also say that the rapidity of getting those alarms out and getting that information out into the public can save lives. So the quicker that those messages can be put out into circulation can inform people to make their own decisions. James Q from Thames Valley Police said drugs checking is reducing drugs use through knowledge, harm reduction and welfare. And for a considerable number of people who are receiving this information for the first time in their lives, drug checking is crucially saving lives. This approach isn't about acquiescing or normalising drug use. This is about proactive harm reduction, and it is achieving positive results. A single drug-related death is one too many. And I think there's a lot to be said in that response. Essentially, this is not about morality, it is about protecting life. Drug checking is health-centred and evidence-based, and it deserves serious consideration here in Northern Ireland. If even one life can be saved, then it is worth it. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Call Alan Chambers.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. From the outset, something that can never be overemphasised is the fact that there is no such thing as safe drug taking. Every illicit drug carries with it the potential to harm and to devastate families. Too many lives in Northern Ireland have already been cut short by substances which society may have thought the risk was limited, but in reality are laced with danger. As a parent and grandparent, watching our loved ones excitedly leaving the house to go to festivals are a common occurrence. For some people, it's a rite of passage. And so it is in that excitement that we also consider what would be any family's worst nightmare. Young people whose promise will never be fulfilled because of a single pill swallowed in a field or a powder taken at a party. A moment's action, but with potentially life-changing consequences. As far as I'm concerned, there's no such thing as too much awareness or too much focus placed on preventing these drugs being consumed or brought to festivals in the first place. And yet, Mr Speaker, as legislators, we are also confronted with the stark truth that drugs are present at concerts, festivals and a multitude of other social occasions. They are circulating and they are being taken. To pretend otherwise would be to close our eyes to the reality on the ground. That is why this debate matters. We've seen in the Republic of Ireland, through the Health Service Executive's drug checking scheme, that rapid testing at festivals can identify highly potent or contaminated substances. But importantly, these warnings are not a green light for drug use. They are a red light flashing urgently to tell as many people who may pick it up that this substance could kill you or at least cause you some serious harm. That is the distinction we must grasp. So instinctively, the call for similar service here in Northern Ireland is compelling. And I note the important work already underway here between the PSNI, Forensic Science, Northern Ireland and Queen's University. But of course, and understandably, any decision or process in relation to a Northern Ireland testing scheme is likely much more complex than it may at first appear. We could do nothing without the necessary expert Home Office approval, and again I stress that our first and foremost priority should remain on prevention of drug taking in the first place. The safest option is never to take drugs at all. That message must remain at the heart of our public health strategy. But alongside prevention, education and enforcement, we must also be responsive to other steps that can demonstrably save lives. And that is why I'm happy and my party is happy to support the motion and receive an update from the Minister. In the meantime, Mr Deputy Speaker, I hope that the PSNI will continue to pursue those evil people that are making fortunes out of peddling a range of addictive poison to our citizens. Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. Members, the Business Committee has agreed to meet at 1 p.m. today. I propose, therefore, by leave of the Assembly, to suspend the sitting until 2 p.m. The debate we're having will continue after question time, when the next member to be called will be Colin McGrath. The sitting is by leave suspended.
Assembly Chamber. Sound. 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 Assembly Chamber. Sound.